Let's be honest. When life feels like it's collapsing, motivation isn't enough. You can't positive think your way out of a genuinely bad situation. I know this because I lived it. For years, I worked a painfully depressing role as a hairdresser. The low pay, the lack of respect, the feeling of being completely stuck. It eroded my sense of self-worth to the point where I would stand on the train platform and genuinely consider stepping off. That feeling of powerlessness, that lie that you have no options, is a trap. But I found the escape route, and it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a sudden opportunity or a lucky break. The escape was responsibility. Not responsibility as a burden, but responsibility as your only way out. This is the practical shift from feeling like a victim of your circumstances to becoming the architect of your life. The lie of helplessness. When you're stuck in a role that drains you, your mind starts to build a prison. You begin to believe the story that your external circumstances define your internal worth. The job, the pay, the way people treat you, it all gets woven into a narrative that says, this is all you are. This is all you deserve. You blame the job for being dead end. You blame the customers for being difficult. You blame the economy for the low pay. And with every blame, you hand over another piece of your power. You convince yourself that the problem is out there, which means the solution must also be out there. You wait for someone to rescue you, for the market to change, for a miracle to happen. This is the lie of helplessness. It's a comfortable lie because it absolves you of the need to act. If it's not your fault, then you don't have to try. But the cost of that comfort is your freedom. I persisted for a long time in that hairdressing role, thinking that sheer endurance was a virtue. But persistence in a direction that leads nowhere is just a slower form of giving up. The turning point wasn't a flash of inspiration, it was a moment of brutal honesty. I realized that my persistence was meaningless if it wasn't coupled with a new direction. I was enduring the problem, not solving it. The decision to actively look for solutions, any solution, was my first real act of responsibility. It was the moment I stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And started asking, what can I do about it right now with what I have? That shift is subtle, but seismic. It moves you from being a passive character in your own story to the active author. This isn't about blaming yourself for your situation, it's about empowering yourself to change it. Blaming yourself is just another form of the victim mindset where you're still the target of forces beyond your control. True responsibility is about claiming agency. It's the recognition that while you may not have chosen the storm, you are the only one who can steer the ship. This shift in perspective, from passive to active, is the foundation for everything that follows. Reframing your worldview. So, what does claiming that agency actually look like? It starts with a fundamental reframing of your worldview. Taking responsibility is first a cognitive shift, a change in how you interpret the events of your life. It's the decision to move from seeing yourself as someone who is affected by the world to someone who influences it. This is the core of what thinkers like Jordan Peterson point to. Order emerges from chaos when you impose your will upon it, starting with the chaos within your own life. The counterintuitive insight here is that real control doesn't come from trying to control everything. It comes from cleanly and clearly accepting the things you can actually change. You can't control the economy, but you can control the skills you build. You can't control whether a company hires you, but you can control how many applications you send out and how well you prepare for the interview. When I decided to leave hairdressing, I applied this directly to the job search. Instead of focusing on the impossible task of getting a high-paying tech job, I narrowed my focus to what I could control. I could learn a specific programming language. I could build one small project. I could reach out to one person in the field for advice. Each of these was a small, manageable act of responsibility that moved the needle. This is where resilience is forged. When you operate from this worldview, setbacks stop being failures and start being data. A rejected job application isn't a verdict on your worth. It's information. It tells you that your resume needs work, or your skills need sharpening, or that particular company wasn't a fit. This reframe is incredibly powerful. It drains the emotional poison out of failure and turns it into a practical tool. You stop being crushed by outcomes and start being guided by them. The world becomes a system you are learning to navigate, not a force that is punishing you. Once this worldview shift happens, once you truly internalize that you are the active force in your life, The practical actions become obvious, almost inevitable. The path forward isn't a mystery waiting to be discovered. It's a series of steps that you choose to take. The 3 daily practices. This new worldview only becomes real when you ground it in daily action. It's not a philosophy you think about once a week. It's a muscle you build every day. Here are 3 practices that will install this mindset into your nervous system. Practice 1. Treat every single interaction, especially the difficult ones, as a learning opportunity. This is where you actively mine your experiences for agency. Even when something is clearly not your fault, a rude customer, a dismissive boss, a system that's unfair, you can still ask one powerful question. What could I do differently next time to influence the outcome? This isn't about self-blame. It's about strategic thinking. Maybe the lesson is to set a firmer boundary earlier. Maybe it's to communicate your expectations more clearly. Maybe it's simply to recognize a toxic situation faster so you can disengage. When you extract a lesson, you reclaim power. You move from "this happened to me" to "this is what I learned, and this is how I'll use it." Practice 2 is about your internal dialogue. You need to start talking to yourself like you're mentoring your future self, or like you're instilling the mindset you'd want for your own child. The language you use in your head is the architecture of your reality. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm stuck," or "I can't handle this," you are building a prison with your own words. Instead, shift to the language of building. Ask yourself, what's the next smallest step I can take? Or, what quality do I need to cultivate right now to get through this? This is the self-talk of a builder, not a victim. It's the difference between saying, "This job is killing me," and asking, "What skill can I practice in this job today to make me more valuable for the next one?" Practice 3 is the most practical. Narrow your focus to the single most effective action you can take right now. Overwhelm is the enemy of responsibility. When you look at the entire mountain you have to climb, it's easy to freeze. Responsibility is about choosing where to direct your energy, moment by moment. It's about making a small, concrete promise to yourself and keeping it. Don't promise yourself you'll fix your career. That's too vague. Promise yourself you will spend 20 minutes tonight updating your resume. Promise yourself you will send 1 email to a potential mentor. Promise yourself you will clean 1 corner of your room. When you keep that small promise, you build evidence for your brain that you are reliable. You are someone who can be trusted to take action. This builds a foundation of self-trust that makes bigger actions possible. Building your escape. These practices aren't magic bullets. They compound over time, like interest. Each small act of responsibility deposits a little more power and order into your life. Looking back at my journey from the train platform to a dream career in tech, the change wasn't one giant leap. It was the accumulation of hundreds of these small, responsible choices. Learning 1 coding concept when I was tired, sending 1 more application after a rejection, reframing a setback as data instead of a final judgment. The result of this continuous process is that you stop feeling like a victim of your life and start feeling like its builder. The freedom that comes from this is profound. It's the freedom of knowing that no matter what happens externally, you have an internal locus of control. You have a process for responding. The chaos is still there, but you are no longer at its mercy. You have tools to impose order, starting with the order within yourself. Responsibility is the escape because it is the only thing that can never be taken from you. It is your inherent power to choose your response. Conclusion. Your escape from chaos begins the moment you stop blaming your circumstances and take 1 small piece of responsibility for what happens next. What's 1 small promise you can make to yourself today? Share it in the comments.